Surprise
Hello,
is working.
YouTube.
Internet has been really shitty, so apologies, YouTube, if this isn't going smoothly.
This sucks, this list sucks, this list sucks, this list sucks, it sucks.
Welcome back to This List Sucks.
Hey.
I'm JB.
And I'm Mike. And we're
Here we-
going. Oh, shit. We're all over each other. It's been a hot minute since we've done this.
You take it away. Yeah.
No, so we're back after a very a prolonged break, a break that we knew we were going to have because
Yes.
JB and I were off fucking off at a fish run out in Vegas where we both had a ton of fun, and JB had so much fun that he was punished with the vid.
Yes, that's true. Or maybe that's just what we've been telling everybody. But the truth is, we've been in Las Vegas this entire time. Mike has been on a crazy run on the craps table. He was there for 72 hours. I had to convince him to step away. It was fucking nuts.
It was the wildest heater of all time, and we've only just gotten back to Des Moines because we had to figure out a way to squander all of the winnings of a 72-hour heater.
Exactly. But I caught COVID in Las Vegas, possibly from one or two students that I had that I found out were positive after the fact. So could have been that as well. But yeah, we're finally back at it after that long break. We do appreciate your patience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't get COVID. It's no fun.
Yeah, no, apparently not. And I'm super thankful that wherever you may have got it, if you did pick it up in Vegas, at least nobody else that we were out there with, at least that I know of, picked it up as well. So, I mean, you know.
Yes, which I'm super glad about.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for taking one for the team, JB.
Oh, you got it. Yeah, I'll get COVID for you anytime.
But we are back. Quick editorial note that JB and I were talking about before the podcast. You know, traditionally, since we started this podcast, and we started this podcast during COVID, and so Friday nights made a ton of sense for us because there was shit else going on in the world. And so, you know, why not get together and have fun and talk shit about a shitty list? Going forward, though, we're going to settle into a weekday night routine. We're not certain what day, but you know, basically start looking for shows to drop maybe on Thursday, Wednesday, or Tuesday of new shows. And if you're watching on YouTube, the live YouTube streams are going to be happening sometime during the weeknight, just because, you know, we're slowly adjusting to a post-COVID world where, you know, if you want to go out to dinner with your better half on a Friday night, you should probably do that instead of hanging out and talking shit about records. And for JB, especially like a living musician, you know, those are big gig nights. And so we're just gonna make slight adjustments for our, you know, post-COVID reality, I guess is the best way to say it. So
that's a great way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're still gonna be looking at that, you know, in terms of the live stream, and between that like 9 and 10:30 range for the start time. And who knows, we might even be able to settle into like a regular day on a weekday. I think that might even be easier for us eventually to settle into a regular day if we're doing a weekday. But we'll see. We're going to kind of see how things shake out. We're not going to commit to any one specific day, but it will happen once a week going forward after this nice break weekend.
Absolutely. It was a well-deserved vacation because, man, we're only 4 weeks away now from being at the halfway mark. Have you thought about that?
Yeah. Nuts.
It's crazy.
We'll have to figure out when our year anniversary is too. I think we still have.
No,
we passed it.
We fucking blew past that. We blew past that motherfucker.
Well, congrats on the year.
Yeah, exactly. So happy 1 year anniversary. We're probably late. We're probably late by like a month, I would think.
At least a month. I think it was like in September maybe or something like that. So that's funny.
Yeah, I think it was too. But either way, listen,
getting close
good times.
Getting close to halfway, and this is our 49th episode. We've done not counting bonus episodes. This is our 49th main episode. So our next episode will be our 50th main episode, which is pretty exciting.
Man, yeah, that is exciting and awesome. And for the record, I got to thinking about this too, and we haven't talked about this, JB, but we'll have to put some thought into it because technically, on the last show before we took our break, we owe people our favorite record from numbers 300 through 275.
Ooh, yeah, that is true. Okay, well,
Yeah.
we'll talk about that at the end of today.
Yeah, at the end of today. But before we get into the stuff from today, I have to talk about some new music because there's been a bunch of new music that has come out recently, and there is stuff that you absolutely need to check out, right? So first and foremost, and this came out just this last Friday. We've talked about it before, but it's finally out. If you have not spun Silk Sonic with Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak, I don't know what you're doing with your life, because that might be some of the funnest 31 minutes that you're going to find. And it's that short, it's that sweet, but fuck, it is really, really good. Like, those two guys together are a fucking phenomenal team.
I think it's a great pairing, and I unfortunately haven't listened to it yet, but I'm gonna, now that I know it's only 31 minutes. I mean, that's like knock that out in the morning, getting ready. So I'm gonna definitely put it on the list. And yeah, like I said, fan pairing, really interesting musical combination, but also fits really well. It's not like it seems out of place at all. Just theoretically.
And it works. It's not just like a, in theory this should work. Listen, in theory it should work. In reality, it is spectacular. So good.
Nice.
Another record that came out recently, Courtney Barnett has a new record out, and I don't know how into Courtney Barnett you are. Her new record is very, very good. Definitely worth the time and worth a listen. And then the other one, and this came out long before, I think this came out before we even took a break, because I think we talked about it on our last show, but that's the new Brandi Carlile record. And that is one that I listened to it a couple of times on digital, and I dug it enough that I picked up the vinyl the last time I was down at Marv's. And I mean, I've spun that vinyl at least 3 times, and that was before I came down to Texas, where I'm at now. And I didn't bring it with me, but whenever I get back, like, it's going to go on again. It's a really, really good record. There's probably only one song on there that I don't necessarily care for, and it's not because I dislike the music of it. It's a song called Werewolf Mama, and it's about her singing a song like she's a mama werewolf, which lyrically is just kind of goofy for me. You know what I mean? And so
it's a little too goofy.
Yeah. I mean, it would make more sense if Trey were singing the lyrics in a lot of ways. And if it was a Fish song, it would probably fit in a little bit easier. But
maybe you don't like Halloween themed songs, because you didn't like that song, and you also didn't like the zombie song by Tom Petty, whatever album that was.
That's right, that fucking zombie dance on Full Moon Fever or whatever the shit.
No zombies, no werewolves. Mike does not fuck with that shit. So
yeah, I mean, unless you're a big black furry creature from Mars, get the fuck out of my life. And if you're a big black furry creature from Mars, get the fuck into my life more frequently than what you have been in the past. So
there you go.
So yeah, Brandi Carlile, Silk Sonic, and let's see if there's anything else.
What about did you check in with that? Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say the new My Morning Jacket. The new My Morning Jacket is also really, really excellent. Finally got the time to listen to it all on digital, and that was another one that they had on vinyl at Marv's that I picked up the same day that I picked up Brandi Carlile.
Nice. Yeah, that was good. I did listen of the ones you listed. That's the only one I listened to, but I definitely dug it. A couple times it's a little slow for me, but I guess I could say that some other songs in the My Morning Jackets catalog in general. So, like the one by them, I really, really do like. But then there's also some stuff that doesn't work as well for me, and in particular.
Yes, and I know I feel like I know exactly what you're saying whenever you make that comment. That some of the songs are a little bit slow, but that's also, man, some of those kind of softer slow jams end up over time becoming some of my favorite material that Jim James does.
Yeah, he does them really well. That's for sure. Like he puts everything he has into it, and you can kind of really just sense his spirit through a lot of those slower tunes.
Yeah. The other thing that I love about Jim James is he enunciates every syllable.
Oh yeah. He's going to get everything he can out of those words.
Of every word.
Absolutely.
It's just kind of, it's cute, right? It's cute and endearing that he sometimes in some songs, he makes it a point, and it always kind of makes me giggle in a weird, stupid schoolboy way. So.
Did you check out two other ones of note that I'm seeing? Did you check out that Kid A Amnesia thing at all?
Dude, that's fucking long. So I started it, but I haven't made it all the way through yet. And I adore Kid A, right? Kid A and OK Computer are the top two Radiohead albums for me. I'm sure that they're probably both going to be in the top 100, I would think, on this list. And so that's something that I need to circle back around to and listen to the whole thing. Did you go through the whole thing?
No, I didn't check it out yet, but it is. So it's Kid A, and then it's Amnesiac, and then it's additional outtakes and B-sides and what looks like 2 previously unreleased tracks. So yeah, I could imagine that's pretty long.
Yeah, because
like 3 hours.
Yeah, because honestly, I don't think that I've ever sat down and listened to Amnesiac before. And that's been out for a really long time.
Yeah, it was 2001.
Well, it was all recorded during the same sessions, right? Those were basically just the cutting room floor material from the Kid A recording sessions.
Gotcha.
And I love Kid A. Like I really, really love it. So I'm baffling myself as to why I've never dug deeper into Amnesiac, but I just haven't, so it's a hole in my Radiohead listing that I need to fill.
For sure. And then I know you're a big Taylor guy. Did you check out the Red's Taylor version?
No, not yet. I will. Yeah. If for no other reason, just to support her and to say, fuck you to like whatever that shithead's name is that owns the rights to all of her music and won't sell it back to her. I love the notion of her saying, you know what, screw you. I'm just gonna re-record everything and re-release it as my own again.
And wow, it has 9 previously unreleased songs.
Holy crap! Does it really?
Album. Yeah, with guest appearances from Phoebe Bridgers, Ed Sheeran, and Chris Stapleton.
No way. There's a Stapleton feature on there?
Yeah.
Get out, man.
That's gonna be worth know that. I'm gonna check that one out too.
Yeah, that's absolutely gonna be worth listening to.
Because isn't Red one of your favorite Taylor Swift albums? Or am I totally off base on that? Okay, no.
Yeah, you're totally off base. My favorite one is 1989. Okay, so 1989 is the first record that I gave Taylor Swift a chance on, if that makes sense. And I got really, really hooked on it. And I probably like Reputation. Reputation is probably my favorite Taylor Swift album because I love how deep she went into kind of like that hip-hoppy electronica version of pop. And I love the way that her voice fit into that. But that album is also probably her most panned studio album from a critical standpoint. Most people hate it. They say that it's nothing, and it wasn't anything like her previous materials. But that's what I loved most about it. If that makes sense, And I still love that record more than just about anything else outside of Folklore. Folklore is spectacular. That's an incredibly good record. Really, really well done.
That was one of the 2 2020 releases, right?
It was the first of the 2 2020 releases, and the better of the two, in my opinion. Man, there are killer fucking tracks on Folklore. Really, really killer stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, cool. You ready to get into the records for this week?
I am, because we got some really good stuff.
We do have some
good
great
stuff to
Definitely
talk
some
about.
good stuff. Yeah, I mean, the further we get down this list, more and more good stuff keeps popping up. Weird how that works out. But yeah, again, just a little recap. We're picking it up back up on Rolling Stone's list of the 500 greatest albums of all time, going through them 5 albums at a time. Today we are starting at number 275. Okay, and that is Curtis Mayfield's Curtis from 1970. In the late 60s, Curtis Mayfield fronted the Impressions, masters of doo-wop soul with a knack for hiding bracing political commentary inside honeyed harmonies. His biting, tender solo debut proved he was lethal as a lone wolf, able to write complex, sprawling, intricate soul music, Move On Up, a persistence mantra, The Makings of You, impossibly lavish, and Don't Worry, if there is a hell below, we're all going to go. A damning indictment of societal dysfunction that still stings today. And it does. It is topical.
Very.
Yes. Had you listened to this one before?
No, I had never heard this record before, and I feel stupid for even saying that right now.
Yeah. Although I'm right there with you. I hadn't listened to the record as a whole. There were definitely tunes I was familiar with. I've always been a big Curtis fan, but my main go-to, which is probably, the most basic bitch main go-to, would be Superfly. The whole soundtrack there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of where I'm at too.
All the time.
But that's not to say that this record doesn't have just instantly recognizable songs on it too, especially when you get to a track like Move On Up.
Yeah, that's the big one.
It's huge. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows
it. It had to be sampled several times, I feel like. Isn't there a Kanye song that samples that?
Yes. Fuck, that song has got, I mean, there has to be at least a dozen rappers that have sampled that song. I mean, it's that ubiquitous, because as soon as the first notes, as soon as the horns come on, if you don't instantly go, oh fuck, this song is amazing, I don't know.
Dude, that whole
line,
it's not even very long. Just thinking about it, it's a pretty simplistic horn line, but it's so iconic and immediately recognizable. Like, I guarantee everybody listening to this, if they don't know this song by name, you turn it on, and in the first 10 seconds, just like Mike was saying, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, like, you know it. There's no way you don't.
Yeah.
So that was a definite highlight for me. That's a 5-star song. There's no way that's not going to be.
Absolutely. But even the very first track, Don't Worry If There's a Hell Below, We're All Gonna Go. Man, I loved how it was like funky psychedelia, right?
Very
like,
psychedelic.
Yeah. And I absolutely loved it. His vocals were fantastic on there. I love the distorted bass that you had in that song. And that, to me, that's probably what created a lot of that psychedelia type of feel to it in my mind, because you do get a lot of that kind of fuzz bass and a lot of the.
I was curious how you were going to think about that.
I loved it.
When you first started this podcast, you were like not a fan of distorted bass, and I feel like your opinion has morphed a little bit on that. Maybe not in every genre, though.
That's the thing. I do think that my love, or my growing love, for fuzz bass is going to be genre specific, and to me, it works so well with funk.
Yeah. Oh, it does, for sure. Yeah, it's got the perfect amount of little aggressive growliness to it that, it just fits perfectly for well.
Yeah, love the wah. The wah on that guitar is really special in that song. Like,
and Curtis Mayfield is like one of the best rhythm guitar players of all time.
Wait, is that him? Is he playing guitar on that?
I don't know if he played it on every track. I'm gonna pull it up for real quick and make sure. But yeah, he is he's like a shining example of rhythm guitar.
Absolutely. And especially if that's him on there. I mean, that's really, really cool.
It's hard to say, because it just, when you go to like the personnel on the Wikipedia page, it doesn't break it down by instrument. It just says musicians, and it lists a list of people. But I'm pretty sure that yes, that's him doing that wah rhythm, because yeah, he's just a very well known rhythm guitarist in like the guitar player world. Like he had kind of a style of his own, um, and yeah, just really really good. So I'm pretty sure that was him.
Well, kudos, Curtis. You smashed it, buddy. Absolutely smashed it. Also, the very last track, "Give It Up," is, man, I loved the guitar on "Give It Up." Absolutely loved the guitar on that track.
Oh, I loved it too, and the harp. There was a lot of harp throughout.
Is that what that was?
Pretty sure. I think there
Okay.
was even at the very beginning, the very first. No, the other side of town, the second track. Like that whole intro to that is just a big harp.
You know, it's funny because I wrote like I wrote ton of I wrote the production on that was, I don't want to call it, I don't think it was heavy-handed. It was just a ton. You know, there was a lot of, and I wrote strings slash other instrumentation because there was so much going on that it was
Hard to
hard
pick it
for
out.
me to pick out, you know, everything that was happening there. I did dig it though. The brass flourishes that were prevalent throughout that song, spectacular. And listen, anybody that's listened to, you know, at least one episode knows that I'm a sucker for horns, you know, and those horns were all over, they were all over the place, you know,
Oh, every song
absolutely all over the place on every song.
for sure.
um
Miss Black America was another favorite of mine. That one and Move On Up were the two tunes that I gave 5 stars to.
Man, that's funny because I didn't put any stars on Miss Black America. I mean, there was stuff that I liked. But for me, that song was just okay. The bass work on that song, I did love. I
Yeah, I was gonna
absolutely
say.
loved the bass work on it.
So the highlights for me was like the interplay between like the dad character and the daughter character in that song, and just his vocals. It had a great chorus, great hook on the chorus, but then the bass, yeah, it was just the bass line throughout was really like abnormal. Like
Mhm.
for the music nerds out there, like most of the time, a bass player is very very heavy handed with like the root notes of the chords that are going on,
That's
and
right.
like the bass line here was just not doing that at all. In fact, he was avoiding it. Like it was doing it. He was playing the fifth of the chord the entire time, and only the fifth. So it was really interesting. It was not what you expect to hear in like funk soul music, and just really interesting. And then at the end, the bass player was just going off. He was like doing
Yeah,
some kind of crazy soloing all over the neck, and it was really really good. Whoever played bass on this record is fantastic.
absolutely. They were heroic. For me with that Miss Black America, I think it was just the utter lack of subtlety
Yeah, that's true.
with the lyrics. Like it became off-putting to me, right? And I mean, all of those words are probably stronger than my notes, right? Because my notes I wrote, ultimately the song is positive, but is it a bit, I used the word forward. Like, is it a bit too forward? And really, you know, it's just the commentary was, it was just too heavy-handed. The commentary was too heavy-handed for me. You know what I mean? I would have appreciated the same message with a bit more subtlety to it.
Yeah, a little less in your face. I can
Yeah.
appreciate perspective.
Well, I mean, I'm glad that you can, because whenever I say it, it feels stupid even saying it. But listen, it was my honest reaction to it, you know, and that doesn't make it a bad song. It's just my opinion, and my opinion sucks just as bad as everybody else's. So,
What were some of the other highlights for you then?
uh, we people who are darker than blue. I that to me was like the polar opposite of Miss Black America, because I thought it was lyrically just beautiful. You know what I mean? Like, and I really, really, man, I really, really loved it. Now, I did make a note about the harp on The Makings of You, not necessarily not necessarily my favorite track on the, in fact it wasn't, like, it was one of my least favorite tracks on the record, but that's because it felt like Phil Spector, or maybe the ghost of Phil Spector, was butt fucking that song to death. So
God, that guy.
I
Even
know
from the grave.
he just
Is it-
ruined shit. But the
Yep.
bass line on "We People Who Are Darker Than Blue," another one, just fucking killer bass on that
I mean,
track.
that was my very
Absolutely
first.
killer.
That's my first note on that song. Is another great bass line. Yeah, there were some cool like feel changes on that. I think like 2 minutes in, it just totally changed feel on that "We the People Who Are Darker Than Blue."
Yeah, that's where
And
the conga
back and
jam kicks in, right?
yeah, yep, with the hand drumming. Yeah, exactly.
Fuck yeah, dude. And it was really, really killer. I put 3 stars next to that song. Really, really liked it.
I did too.
And then Wild and Free, I put 1 star next to Wild and Free and 1 star next to The Other Side of Town. Listen, Where the Rubber Meets the Road, this is not a long record. I think this is like 34, 35 minutes.
Yep.
So it's not a huge commitment time wise. And the payoff is worth it, because even the songs that I was a little bit shitty about, they're fucking good songs, right? I mean, we're at the point in this list where there's going to be nitpicking about some things. And that's what I feel like I'm doing, because overall, this is a great fucking record. It's a really great record.
Do you think as we get higher or closer to the top of the list, like is your criteria for stars getting more stringent? Like is it
Well,
like, are you less likely to give out stars as we get higher?
I don't I don't think that I don't know, because I was trying to think about that myself, like as I was going through this. I was trying to be more cognizant about, am I treating these records the same way that I treated, records around 400 or around 450? And I feel like I am, but at the same time, if a song isn't just a banger for me at this point in time, I'm not going to give it a star just because it's this high on the list. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think I just tend to be a little heavy-handed with stars with this style of music. Like if you look at like my page, most of these songs have 3 or more stars, and you look at like a 2 so far, right? Tons of stars on those pages too. So, like for whatever reason, this stuff just I have a hard time not just blasting the page with ink.
And
Star, you get a star.
And I'm right there with you, right? Like anything with horns, anything with funk and horns, Jesus, you're pushing all my buttons from the jump. Like all my good buttons are getting hit. But again, I do think I am probably a little bit more critical of these, just because I'm coming into it with a much higher expectation than what I would have, with a Alice Coltrane at 460 with Journey into Sachidananda.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And we know Curtis Mayfield's name, so we have a certain, like you said, expectation. Whereas I don't think either of us were familiar with Alice Coltrane at all.
None whatsoever. And so I like those surprises. But listen, I'm getting some of those surprises, and not to jump ahead, because I do want to, like, we do have a couple more things to talk about with Curtis. But even the Birds, like Sweetheart of the Rodeo, I had never heard that before. I knew that you were familiar with it. I really, really dug that record. I dug a lot of that record.
It's really good. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. But before we get into that and before we read about it, a couple of things. For one, I added this to digital. I will absolutely pick up the vinyl of this at some point in time. Even if it was just to Move On Up on vinyl, right? I'm all over this record. Definitely worth the pickup for me. I probably like the placement too. I certainly wouldn't move it down, and I don't know that I would move it up. I probably like its spot.
You wouldn't move it on up? Sorry, I had to.
Well played.
No, I think it's a good spot for it too, because I guarantee we're gonna get Superfly by Curtis.
Absolutely.
Higher up. And I think that this is appropriate positioning, having this one in kind of the mid-range and having Superfly closer to probably between 50 and 150. I think it's probably in that area. I wouldn't think it's probably lower than 50.
No, honestly, I think it's gonna be between 1 and 2 is where I think
Yeah,
Superfly is. Yeah,
yeah, I
because
wouldn't be shocked at that.
I don't know that Superfly will break 100, but I definitely don't think that we're gonna get it, in the remaining 200s. Like, I think
No,
it'll be higher than 200, but I don't know that, or lower than 200, but I don't know if it'll be lower than 100, if we're talking in those terms.
that's gonna be a fun one to talk about. There are so many good songs on that one. Like I said,
Absolutely.
I used to have that CD in my car. I probably used to spin that like every day for 2 years.
Very cool. Okay, that being said, I recently got to completely erase and reset my iPad. So I don't have access. I currently do not have access to our email account. And Rex has been texting me as we've been broadcasting. And I think that Rex may have missed a week
Yeah,
because
we don't have an email from Rex.
okay. Okay. Well, I'm sure that we'll get one at some point in time because Rex is watching. I think Rex is watching the stream right now.
Is he?
Um,
Okay.
yeah, but
Well, Rex,
he.
if you get us your email before the end of the podcast, we will read all of them.
But don't feel obligated. At the same time, Rex, don't feel obligated. We can catch you on it next week if you want to go back and listen to it. But all that being said, if you're willing, let's talk about number 274.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So from 1968, number 274 is Sweetheart of the Rodeo by the Byrds. Rolling Stone says, on release, this bold experiment in Nashville classicism was shunned by rock fans and country purists alike. But the American rural song had been central to the Byrds' folk rock sound. Here, driven by junior Byrd Graham Parsons, the band highlighted that connection, dressing Bob Dylan and Merle Haggard songs in steel guitar and rock and roll drive, setting the stage for country rock. Parsons left signs of his short, glorious future in his originals Hickory Wind and 100 Years from Now. So you knew this record, yeah?
I think this might have been the first record I had on vinyl.
No way.
If it wasn't the first, it was in the first 10. And it wasn't because I sought it out particularly. It was because a really, really close friend of mine who we'll probably have on the podcast at some point. His name is Jordan Clow, huge vinyl junkie, music nerd in general. He kind of got me started with collecting years and years ago. And I think he had a duplicate, and I was like expressing interest in starting my own collection because I was excited about like his, and he was like, here's one, and it was Sweetheart of the Rodeo. So it was one of my very, very early pieces of my vinyl collection. So I was familiar with this one. We talked about this on the podcast when we had the last
Byrds
record that was all Dylan tunes, or for the most part Dylan tunes. It wasn't all, but it was like 65-70% Dylan tunes.
Yeah.
And we were like, maybe this one's going to be on there, and here it is.
Yeah, exactly. Because I believe they're within 10 spots of each other, which is
Yeah.
kind of weird. It's like I don't know. It's basically, it's a lot like Neil Young. Neil Young has come in like big kind of chunks. Now, of course, Neil Young's catalog is far bigger. I think Neil Young is far more influential. So this is probably the last Byrds record that we see, right?
I would say so. I would be shocked if it wasn't. But
Yeah,
this is a huge one though. I mean, this is like one of the first country rock records, like they said, like one of the first records to fuse those two genres.
So it's funny because we also had Graham Parsons on earlier in the list, and it was fun to read about that guy because that guy seemed like such a weird asshole-ishy type of character,
Are you talking about the Burrito Brothers?
Yes, the Flying Burrito Brothers, right? And this record is so much more enjoyable than that. I mean, so much more enjoyable than the Flying Burrito Brothers for me. And you can tell that they were kind of trying to do the same thing, but I really feel like, I don't know, this one nailed it. I mean, it really, really nailed it. Now, I don't have any songs on here that I put 5 stars next to. I do have 4 stars next to Nothing Was Delivered. That fucking song is spectacular. I probably should have put 5 stars next to it, to be perfectly honest with you.
Even though it's a cover?
Yeah, don't even care. Because they fucking nailed it.
They
Like
do
that
nail it.
song is spectacular. Really, really fucking spectacular.
The one that I put 5 stars next to the first track, and that was the only one I put 5 stars next to. I love that first song.
I love that too. The fucking pedal steel on that song is spectacular. The harmonies on that song are glorious. Really fucking glorious.
They're really fantastic. Yeah. Great organ on there. I love the chorus. Like, it doesn't rhyme at all. It doesn't like it shouldn't be a hook from like a just like a theoretical standpoint, but it is just so catchy, and I just can't help but sing along to it. That's another Dylan song. There's a lot of there's more Dylan tunes on this one too, like at least 3 or 4.
Yeah. Along with Merle Haggard too. And that Merle Haggard song that is on here is Life in Prison. That's a fucking great song. Really, really a great song.
It's a very Merle Haggerty tune, that's for sure. But a lot of these, like, they kind of find a formula or a sound and they just stick with it, and it works. I mean, most of the songs are like these kind of country folk swing tunes that have like a harder edge to them, and most of the instrumentation is pretty much the same, with like the pedal steel and the drums and the acoustic guitar. But it's fantastic. Like they found a formula and they stuck with it, and it works for me.
Absolutely. Works for me too. The only song that I didn't put any stars next to that I wasn't crazy about was The Christian Life. Although that song is fascinating because in this record, did you read about how Graham Parsons was lead vocals on maybe 6 of the tracks on here? But then after they had recorded everything, cut his lead vocals and they re-recorded. Most of them were with Roger McGuinn. Like they basically re-recorded the lead vocals, and it basically wasn't featured as much on the album because he joined the group.
Yeah, they're like, wait a second.
He joined the group. He kind of drove this direction into this, cosmic Americana or whatever the fuck. He had that weird kind of kitschy name for his country take on folk rock or whatnot. And so he drove them into this direction. And then they were apparently going to play a show in South Africa. But Graham Parsons, who we know from the Flying Burrito Brothers, he was hanging out with Mick Jagger and Keith Richards and the Rolling Stones a lot. Basically, the Stones were talking to him and they're like, dude, you can't fucking go to South Africa. Like, there's apartheid there. It's basically slavery. And if you're really going to go and fucking play in front of all those slave masters, you're a fucked up person. So, don't be a fucked up person. Don't do that. And ostensibly he said, yeah, I'm fucking quitting. I'm leaving the band. And it was before the record had been released. So the remaining leaders, quote unquote, of the Byrds, if you will, they went back and they said, yeah, we got to fucking get this guy. We got to remove him.
We got to re-record. So Graham Parsons basically just quit the band because he didn't want the Rolling Stones to think he was a douchebag.
Basically. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. Right at the beginning of a tour too. It was definitely a fucked up thing to do, but I've read about Graham Parsons. He wasn't like the most stand-up guy.
No, so it's not that surprising. We haven't read, it's not been all good things. Not that we've read it. Yep. But yeah, definitely some good tunes on here.
So your favorite cut was "You Ain't Going Nowhere." That was your favorite cut on the record?
Yep, that was my favorite one. Other highlights were I liked "You Don't Miss Your Water" a lot. Love the ragtimey piano on that one.
The fucking harmonies,
and a cool vocal. Really, really cool harmonies. And that was like they had a cool vocal technique, like a weird double tracked thing where they had like two like unison vocal tracks, but one of them was panned to the left and slightly delayed. And they used that on a couple tunes, and that was the first one where that appeared, and I really liked that sound. And then like the Merle Haggard tune. I need to go back and listen to this Merle Haggard version, but there was like a walking bass line, like a jazz walking bass line on that.
Yes.
And I was like, that can't be how the Merle Haggard version goes. Like that's a pretty cool thing to do.
I literally wrote that it felt out of place. Like it felt
did.
so bizarre to get basically like a walking bass jazz. It was like a walking bass line out of a jazz tune is really what it was, you know, but I
liked
loved
it.
And it was bizarre, but it worked. Like I dug it. The piano towards the end of that track was spectacular as well. I loved the piano on that one.
Yeah, on Life in Prison.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, very, very good.
Pretty Boy Floyd, which was a Woody Guthrie tune, back, I want to say it was like the 4th or 5th track. No, actually the 6th track. I dug that. I could not fucking pick out the mandolin to save my life. Apparently there was a mandolin on there somewhere. I think it was Roger McGinn was playing the mandolin on there. I couldn't hear it to save my life, but I'm really terrible about that anyway. So,
well, I didn't write anything about the mandolin either. I did write about the banjo and the fiddle that was on that one. That was like a bluegrass tune, basically.
Yeah, that's how it came across, right?
Yeah. But it also, like, I heard like outlaw country of today in that a little bit.
Okay, almost like a Sturgill type of bluegrass type of feel.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely heard some of that. So, yeah, I mean, if nothing else, this record is like part of like the beginning of country rock, so it deserves recognition for that.
I mean, to me, this, like, if you don't get this record, you don't get a band like Wilco, right? Because Wilco kind of weaves a lot of that folky, almost, you know, I mean, at one point in time, I want to say that Wilco was being called alt country, you know, and that's kind of what this feels like, is almost like it's the grandfather, right? It's like the grandfather of what you may call alt country. I dig it though.
Sure. Yeah,
I dig it a lot.
You happy with the placement?
I'd probably drop it a little bit. I don't know that I would drop it a ton. Maybe get it somewhere closer to like 325. But that also jives with me wanting to drop the Last Birds record that we saw on the list too.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. I'd probably drop them both just a little, maybe not even drop this one, but like I don't think we need two of them in this close vicinity, you know. So if we drop the other one down to like maybe north of 350, and then leave this one where it is,
and then leave it
5 or 10, you know.
It would not take a lot to convince me that that's the best move. You know what I mean? Like keeping this one fairly close to where it's at. But getting the other one a little bit farther away, because I do think that this is, I mean, I don't know if it's more influential, because I do think that first Birds album, I do think that there was a ton of influence that first Birds album provided, just in terms of the sound that they were able to create and how that sound was then used and kind of ripped off by a fuck ton of other bands after them. But this was a way ballsier move, in my opinion. Like, this is a musical fucking risk, you know, that they took.
For sure. And at the time.
And it worked. You know, it worked.
It paid off. Yep, I'm right there with you. You gonna get this one on vinyl? Did you already?
I don't know. I will. I absolutely will, but I don't own it on vinyl. Now, I didn't add it to digital, but I would absolutely pick up the vinyl. I would pick up the vinyl just for Nothing Was Delivered.
Yeah, that is a great tune. I wonder how many Dylan tunes are on this. If it's just those two, if there's more, I need to look into that. But I think they love Dylan.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. I think it was just those two. Just
but
those
it's
two.
Mostly covers again. That's the thing. Like there's only a couple originals, and the originals are Graham Parsons originals.
Exactly. That's exactly right. But no, dug it a lot. And actually, another note that I made on here, which is kind of interesting relative to the time, is that American Beauty is what this record made me think of, by the Grateful Dead.
Yeah, interesting.
You know, Because American Beauty is really the first time that the Dead start to go almost down. They kind of abandon the bluesy psychedelia and they start to delve into that folksy kind of country type of feel on American Beauty.
Was American Beauty before Working Man's?
Oh, no, you're fucking right. And actually, Working Man's is the first record that they do that with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and the
because
reason I
American
said
Beauty was
interesting-
after.
The reason I said interesting is because when we were talking about the Flying Burrito Brothers record, I remember thinking that it reminded me of Working Man's.
Interesting. Yeah. Both listen, really, really good stuff though. Really good stuff. And if you haven't checked this one out, I can't recommend it enough because it really is unique and just in light of this conversation, I mean, it did spawn a lot. Super influential.
Yep. And that kind of got me thinking we probably will get to American Beauty soon, I would think.
I would think so too. Although, I mean, listen, I would like to see it lower than 200. I don't know if we're going to get that, but I'm going to hope. I'm going to hope that it's lower than 200.
Yeah. I'm right there with you.
So,
okay, anything else you want to say about this one or should we move on?
Oh, let's do it.
Okay. So, here we are at number 273, which is Gang of Four Entertainment is the album from 1979. Formed in 1977, Gang of Four combined Marxist politics with punk rock. They played staccato, guitar-driven funk and the stiff, jerky aggression of songs such as Damaged Goods and I Found That Essence Rare. Invented a new style that influenced bands from the Minutemen to LCD Sound System to a Git rappers, Run the Jewels, who sampled Entertainment's Ether. Even when they're barking at you about the capitalist commodification of desire, they never sound like dogmatic grad students because the songs bite so hard. What do you think about this one?
Well, I mean, if I go purely based on stars, it's not too bad. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, some of it is Damaged Goods, right? It's like a dancey punk song.
Yes. So that's like the biggest thing about this album for me. The biggest takeaway for me was just the amount that the focus was on rhythm, which I don't know is really necessarily like with punk. So like this is a really, really good example of post-punk, in my opinion. Because like it's much less about the attitude. Although that is definitely a component, but it's not the biggest component. With regular punk, like you look at, like Black Flag, I guess that's a I don't know if that's a regular punk or not, but and things like that, it's just raw attitude. They're not really thinking about like a groove at all.
No.
Whereas this is heavily based on groove. Almost all of these songs have some kind of dance groove to them. And it's so much about the rhythm, especially with the guitar. Most of what he's doing all the time is just so dissonant. Like it doesn't like there's no way that he was like, I'm choosing this guitar part because of the notes. Like that's not what it was. He's choosing guitar parts because of the rhythm and how it's interlocking with the bass and with the drums.
And the drums. Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is just a perfect snapshot of post-punk, and like this sums up what post-punk is, in my opinion.
I probably like the phrase post-punk better than my phrase of dance punk, but it's the same thing, right?
Yeah, I think that's just two different words for the same thing.
Yeah, it's definitely the same thing. Damaged Goods is so much fun. It made me think of the Chili Peppers is what it made me think about. And a lot of this record made me think about early Red Hot Chili Peppers. I'm not talking Stadium Arcadium. I'm definitely talking Mother's Milk type of Chili Peppers here.
Yeah.
But man, it's all over the place,
For sure. And the bass player is probably the MVP for me. Like most of these songs, they're built on the interplay between the bass and the guitar player, in my opinion. And the bass is holding everything together. So the bass is making you dance and the drummer is helping, but the bass player is the most important. And then the guitar is like this weird dissonant frosting on top, that he's like putting these little chirpy, chaotic sounds in between what the bass player is doing. But the bass player is holding everything together, and like that's the sound of this to me, is the guitar and the bass interplay.
I can't. The comment that I see over and over again, note after note after, like song after song, is great bass, or I love the bass and drums. You know, because I agree with you. It's definitely bass centric, but I don't know that I don't want the drumming to be any different relative to what the bass player is doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
I wanted exactly how they've recorded it, and I really dig it a lot. I do want to give a shout out to the song 5.45 though too, because that song fucking smashes. Absolutely smashes. And I love when the guitar comes in on that song, because when the guitar comes in, it's just fucking pure mayhem. Like
It is.
absolute mayhem when the guitar kicks in on that song.
That's the one where like there's a harmonica at the beginning, and like the
Yes.
harmonica is playing the melody, and then the guitar comes in and like takes over the melody,
Yes. Yes.
but
It's
with much more
so
aggression.
a ton, yeah. I was gonna sarcastically say, well, just a little bit more aggressive. Yeah, it is like fuck you in your face, more
Yeah.
aggressive when it comes on. But I absolutely, I put 5 stars next to that song. I absolutely loved it. The very last little note that I wrote was, I wrote punk with brains and heart, because
Yeah.
that's what that song felt like. You know.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. And I just think this is like, just to sum up how different this is than just regular, like just old school punk, is how much we're talking about like the instrumentation, you know, because
Yes.
like typically if you're just talking about a straight up punk album, you're not going to be like talking about the bass line, you know, I mean, you're
No.
talking about like the song and the lyrics and the attitude of it, which, like I said, definitely an aspect here. But what was sticking out to me much more was the groove of most of the songs. Other highlights for me, Return the Gift. I like that one a lot.
Yep.
Another like fun, like classic punk lyrics, like very anti-capitalism type theme. Like
Very much so. Yes.
I liked I Found That Essence Rare. I like that one a lot too.
Yeah, that is maybe the best example of just like a pure punk song on this record.
That's what I was gonna say. Yep, I was like fast-paced, aggressive punk, pretty basic. Although it did have like a dancey drum beat, you know, and that was the only like maybe traitor to the rest of that sound.
Yeah, yeah, but that to me, like that was that one, and Glass, actually, because I wrote the same thing on Glass. Now the fucking bass line on Glass is ridiculously good, especially in the chorus. Like the bass line during the chorus of that song I really loved, but it was short, it was sweet, and it was fucking punk. It was punk as fuck.
Yep. What did you write on the last song, Love Like Anthrax?
God damn it. Okay, I'm glad that you got here, because that's actually the only song on this record that I didn't put any stars next to. Yeah, it's the only one that I put no stars next to, and I wrote 90 seconds of guitar noise and discomfort. Sets an unsettled mood. These vocals are wild, with one guy talking while the other is singing the lyrics. Wild song, not my favorite.
Yeah, it was really fucking weird. It was like very experimental, you know. And I wrote a very similar thing. I was like, a minute and a half before anything really starts, it's just like crazy chaotic guitar, and then it's repetitive bass and drum, very simplistic. And just like you said, yeah, one guy was singing, one guy was just talking, and you couldn't really hear what either one was saying because of the way they were stepping on each other.
Yeah, it was just fucking dumb mayhem.
And then they have this like silly line that they're chanting on the outro for like another 30 seconds. I put a star with a question mark next to it. I was like,
so it might be okay.
yeah. I was like, I think I imagined myself as writing this star really slowly, and like just I'm so confused that I'm just gonna give it a star, you know.
I've actually done that before with other records that we've done on the list, where I'll write like a single star and then a question mark next to it, just to be like, I mean, this might be good, but it might not be good. I did not do that on this one, because to me,
You're pretty sure
it was just not good. Like I just couldn't do it. And it's funny because that was the closer, you know, and to me, I loved 5.45 so much that I wish that would have been the last song. Because if they would have closed the record with that 5.45, fuck, man, I probably would have been arguing for this to move up like 20 or 30 spots on the list, because I do like I hear so much of the future in this music, because Rolling Stone references like LCD Sound System, and I get that. You know what I mean? Especially with the dancier tracks. Like the dancier tracks, it's like, fuck yeah, like this is all over the place. But then, in a lot of those other songs, like I already mentioned, like I hear a ton of early Chili Peppers in here too. And it's really good. It's really good. I'm not going to argue with the placement of it. I definitely don't want it to move. I definitely don't want it to go closer to 500. I don't think I'm convinced that I want it to get any closer to number 1, but I did really like it. And if I happened upon this in vinyl, I'd probably fucking pick it up.
Yeah, I think I probably would too. It seems like it's a pretty important record too. Like I'm just reading a couple little notes here. I don't know if you read much into this, but like in terms of other musicians, like Kurt Cobain, I guess, listed it as one of his 50 favorite albums of all time. Which, I mean, that's a lot of albums, I guess. And then it says Flea of the Chili Peppers stated that the first time he heard the record, quote, "It completely changed the way I looked at rock music and sent me on my trip as a bass player."
That's crazy. I did not read that. I didn't. I want to say that I did read the Cobain thing, because I kind of did like a super heavy sigh eye roll whenever I read that, and I was just like, "Oh, great, more Rolling Stone fucking blowing dead Kurt Cobain's dick." But
they would too.
Yeah, they would. They would be all over that hog. But I mean, either way, it's great. I mean, it really is. It's a fucking great record. Absolutely great record. I'm glad that. Surprise. Yeah, I'm glad that the list brought me this, because
as we get higher and higher up, it's like more surprising to see something that I've never heard of or have any idea. And this was one of those for me.
Absolutely one of those for me too. What do you want to do with it placement wise?
I could see dropping it, but not significantly, maybe like 20 or 30 spaces, but I don't really have like a solid reason for that. It's just maybe because I just need to spend more time with it and I'm brand new to it. But I think it belongs here for sure, especially with like, I think it probably helped kind of bridge things towards new wave a little bit too.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of feels like a halfway point between punk and new wave to me.
Yeah. So when you say drop it a little bit, you're going to keep it in the 200s, but if it went to 295, you're good.
Yeah. We should figure out some kind of consistent language there. So for me, and you tell me if you're thinking the same thing, when I say down, I mean higher number wise, like
correct.
Like lower to the when I say down, I mean closer to the bottom of the list. When I say higher, I mean actually lower with the numbers.
Correct. Yeah, we're both saying the same thing. And so if listeners
from now on,
if listeners are getting confused, down is bad, up is good. Apply that logic however you need to. But down is bad, up is good.
Yes. Exactly.
So
cool. Yeah, I would get it on vinyl for sure. I don't know if I said that, but I totally would. I didn't add it to digital. I'm not going to listen to it on digital, but I will do it on vinyl.
I added it to digital so that I could listen to it on an airplane, and I'm not going to delete it from my digital catalog, only because like if one of these songs happenstance to come up like on shuffle, I wouldn't be upset about it unless it was Love Like Anthrax. And then I would be fucking pissed if that thing came up on a goddamn shuffle. I'd be angry.
Weird little note, actually. Weird little factoid about that song. It was included in the movie The Manchurian Candidate, the remake. And I'm just like, why? Like, why were you listening through trying to find stuff for your movie? And you were like, yep, this is perfect. We need Love Like Anthrax by Gang of Four to be in The Manchurian Candidate. The
That is
2004 remake. Strange,
it's
right?
fucking that's dumb. It's
It's a useless
dumber
piece of
than
information, so for you guys to have, but I read it and I was just like really surprised and confused by it, so I thought I would mention it.
yeah. I mean, that's fucking thoroughly confusing. I mean,
So
super thoroughly confusing.
if you're ever at trivia and the question comes up, what Gang of Four song was featured in 2004's remake of The Manchurian Candidate? You'll know it's Love Like Anthrax.
Love Like Anthrax, and you'll know that it's a fucking terrible song that you shouldn't even waste your time listening to.
Yeah.
Okay, I really want to dig into this next one because I can't wait to hear. I can't wait to hear what your take is on this. So, if you'll indulge me, number 272 from 1968, Velvet Underground's album White Light, White Heat. Rolling Stone says, quote, "It's a very rabid record," end quote, bassist violinist John Cale wrote in the liner notes to the 1995 box set Peel Slowly and See. Quote, "The first one had some gentility, some beauty. The second one was consciously anti-beauty," end quote. Drowning their songs in guitar fuzz and drone, the Velvet Underground captured the toe-clenching freakouts of their live shows with their second album, the most extreme disc in VU's extreme catalog. The Blow Your Wig Back highlight, Sister Ray, 17 minutes of amplifiers screaming.
Our first Velvet Underground.
Mm-hmm.
First of probably three, but maybe two. I don't know. What do you think about that?
At least three.
We're definitely gonna get Nico, which is the one that came before this.
Dude, there's no way we don't get loaded.
You think we get? Yeah.
There's no fucking way we don't get loaded.
Yeah, probably will. But for some reason, I would be less surprised if they left Loaded out as if they left Nico out. I don't know why, but I just think that's such an iconic record, and the pairing with Andy Warhol and all that. Like, there's no way they don't put that one on here. But the way the bass players quote at the beginning, this is a rabid record. Like, I can't think of a better word to sum that up. That is the perfect vocabulary word for that. Because, yeah, I mean, basically, their first record was Velvet Underground and Nico, and they didn't have like any success with it at the time, which is very weird. They basically
crazy.
Yeah, they cut off ties with Andy Warhol. After that, they're like, "Fuck, we got to take this shit in a new direction. This did not work at all. Everybody hated this." so and yeah, it was very like there's a lot of softer, more melodic songs on that record, and this is just, I mean, it's rabid. It's a lot more aggressive. There's a lot of stuff where you can barely even tell what's going on because the guitar is so fuzzed out and so loud.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also a lot of fun stuff going on. I particularly liked the Gift. Did you like that one?
Okay, so full and fair disclosure, I fucking loved The Gift.
Yeah.
It takes listen, if anybody goes out there and based on what you and I just said, and they're like, "Damn, dude, I gotta listen to this song," you're gonna put it on and you're gonna get 5 minutes deep into that song, and you're literally gonna wonder what the fuck is wrong with me and JB, because it's so bizarre, and it just it's the one thing about it is you don't get like the intense noise from like Lou Reed that you get on a lot of the rest of the record. It's actually a little bit more subdued than that, because it's basically a spoken word track, but the fucking story is worth it. Like, the story is so worth it. And it's funny because the song ends with the end of the story, and it's almost jarringly abrupt, the way that the song ends relative to the way that the story in the song ends. But I fucking loved it. I mean,
are we talking about the story, or are we going to intentionally withhold that so people can listen to it on their own?
I really don't think that we should spoil it. Listen, if you're listening to this podcast and you're not familiar with this record, I don't know that I would recommend that you go out and listen to the whole record, because quite frankly, I didn't really enjoy much of this record. Like, it was too avant-garde noisy for me, for my sensibilities. But that one song, The Gift, it's worth the 8 minutes. I mean, the payoff is worth it. And it was one that the first time that I heard it, when I got to the end of it, I literally I had to stop and say, wait, what? And I fucking rewound it all the way back to the beginning. And I listened much more intently the second time through, and I really kind of fell in love with the song.
I was laughing my ass off when I listened to it the first time. I didn't know, because I didn't know any of these songs, just to be clear.
Yeah. And me neither.
I'm a pretty big Velvet Underground fan. Velvet Underground and Nico is probably one of my, I would say, top 20 most commonly spun vinyls that I have. I mean, I went through a period where I spun that one a lot, and like another buddy of mine, we would get together and like whenever we're trying to find something to throw on in the background because we're just hanging out. That was one of the ones that we like agreed on the most.
Listened to Velvet Underground and Nico a couple of times, but I don't own any Velvet Underground on vinyl.
Really?
Yeah, and so as we get to it, it'll be fun. I probably the most exposure that I have is probably on Loaded, and that's probably more because of Fish than it is because of Velvet Underground. As anyone that knows,
I don't think I have Loaded. I don't think I have Loaded on vinyl.
Yeah. I mean, listen, it's got really great songs on it, right? Rock and Roll is spectacular. Sweet Jane is really, really spectacular.
I mean, yeah, Oh Sweet Nothing on it. I mean,
I love Sweet Nothing. Yeah, I mean, it's a great one, and that's why I think both of those are going to be on here. I do think that we're going to get Velvet Underground and Nico, and I do think we're going to get Loaded too.
Yeah, I hope so. But yeah, this is an interesting record. Like it's aggressive and rabid, both musically and just even like lyrically and thematically. All of these songs have really strange like subject matter. Like first of all, the very first one is literally just about injecting meth. I don't know if did you know that? Yeah.
Yep.
That's what the whole thing's about. It's basically just him comparing how he feels when he's shooting up meth. That's all it is. The Gift, we're gonna let you discover that one on your own. The next one, which actually was probably one of my favorites musically, Lady Godiva's Operation, is about a transgender lady who gets presumably a lobotomy, although it could also be a sex change operation at the end. But there's like very clear references to the doctor like cutting into the brain. So I think it's a lobotomy they're talking about, and
I think so too.
Gets botched. He or she like wakes up in the middle of it, and it's just exactly. And they talk about how the screams can be heard through the hallways and stuff. I mean, it is like horrifying. It's just like it's a pretty harrowing subject matter that he gets into.
Absolutely.
And then I'm trying to think what Here She Comes Now is really just a double entendre about Here She Comes, like shows up, and then also like sexually comes. And then
sexually comes. Yeah.
The whole thing is just that. There's like no other lyrics. The whole thing is like, Here she comes now. Here she comes now. The whole time. So it's
like 2 minutes, ridiculously short, right? Because that's the other unique thing about this album is the juxtaposition of like a 17-minute Sister Ray relative to a 2-minute Here She Comes Now.
Yeah.
It's just
exactly. Musically, Lady Godiva's Operation is fun for me. I really like the guitar. There's a really, really good guitar part on there, like the little lead guitar part that starts the thing. It sounds great. It's a good song. I like that one a lot. There's like electric viola on that one too, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
What was your favorite song like musically?
Honestly, musically, probably Here She Comes Now. Like really? I felt like that one was the most like fully flushed out song.
Yeah,
if that makes
a lot
sense.
of these are not really that. Like Sister Ray is probably the longest not fully flushed out song ever made because it's basically just like 3 chords the entire time, and it's not even really like Sister Ray is 17 minutes long, and everything's kind of slightly out of time with each other. Like you can tell that they recorded it live, but that they're not playing tight. I don't know whether it's intentional or not. They are not like locked in together. but they do kind of do some fun jamming on that. Like you can tell that they're responding to each other a little bit, and they're speeding up and slowing down. They're doing hits together. So I did like that part of that, but that's too
I like
long.
I liked the organ. I liked the organ on that track. Like it was fucking buried, amongst all the noise and distortion. But if you can pick it out, it's worth picking out, because I really did like the organ track on there. And I'm kind of like you, the jam was just kind of all over the place. I literally wrote down that it goes hither and thither. Shout out to Pale Blue Earth. Like I was thinking about that whenever I wrote it. Listen, dude, I don't get it. And I can feel free to say that I don't understand. I don't understand why this made the list. I really don't.
Yeah.
And Waldo Jeffers aside, like I love Waldo Jeffers. It's fun. But I just I don't know. I don't know.
And the reason I'm saying is because it's kind of hard to justify. It's hard to put into words. Yeah, I mean, there's not like a great answer. I can't be like, "Oh, duh, dude, you're stupid. You're not understanding this." It's probably just just who they are. It's just if this was any other band, if this wasn't Velvet Underground, it wouldn't be on this list. But I'm pretty sure you're gonna feel way differently about the other albums than you do about this one.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Cuz I do, like I said, I do have, it's not the same familiarity that you have with Velvet Underground and Nico or with Loaded, but I've got enough familiarity that I totally agree with you. And I know that I'm going to feel differently about any other records that we may encounter from them on this list, but that still doesn't take away just the crazy head scratcher that this one is. And think about this. I want to put this thought out there too. Surrealistic Pillow by Jefferson Airplane was like 461 or whatever the hell it was.
I have a feeling Lou Reed is going to be another one of these Kurt Cobains and Neil Youngs that Rolling Stone just kind of wants to suck his dick. So we're probably going to get one or two solo Lou Reed albums too. I think because he has a couple of really really famous ones.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of that's how it's always felt like to me. Like as much as I do love Lou Reed, he's always been kind of like like a hero of like the pretentious crowd,
the artsy crowd loving on Lou Reed.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
I actually really dig. So have you taken the time to watch the documentary that just came out on Apple TV about the Velvet Underground?
No, not yet.
So they just put it out. I want to say it came out maybe like 3 weeks or a month ago or something like that. And it's called The Velvet Underground. Definitely worth your time to check out. And I'm glad that I watched it kind of in roughly the same time that I was listening to this record, because they do a lot of interviews with John Cale. And I really, really like John Cale. Like I find him to be an immensely fascinating character, and the fact that he was doing so much violin work, especially on Velvet Underground and Nico, I'm excited. Like I'm excited to dig into that record, and I'm not going to today because I feel pretty confident that record is going to be on this list, and so I'll wait.
Sure.
I'll wait until we get to it on the list.
He's not on Loaded, right? John Cale. Didn't he leave the band?
Yeah, he left the band. Yeah, so he was not on Loaded. That's absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. He did end up leaving. But I'm excited about it,
And I wasn't super familiar with like the history of like the order of the releases with Velvet. So like when I first cold listened to this, I was like, oh, interesting. This is like definitely like a super early one. And it was, but I was like, this definitely came out before Velvet Underground and Nico. I was pretty surprised when I was reading about it, and it was absolutely not the case. And the situation was that Velvet Underground and Nico was so unsuccessful that they just went in a completely different direction.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't hate this one. I do kind of like it. I think it's fun to get just that the absolute raw side of this band. and as influential and fantastic as this band is. So I would probably leave this on the list, but I would drop it down pretty significantly. And I would want to see the other ones quite far away from it, you know. So, but I would probably put this in the between 4 and 450. You would take it off all the way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my question to anybody that even said, well, this needs to be on here for influence, is I would say, influence to who? Like, what did this influence? You know, because last time I checked, like, there wasn't a whole lot of 35-minute fucking weird artsy noise albums, you know, that have been massive hits. And that's what most of this record is, you know. It's like noise art is kind of what it feels like. Very postmodern art, noise art. I don't know, whatever you want to call it.
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
Listen to it and let us know what you guys think. This would be like one that we would really like people to weigh in on, because this is a weird one.
Thank you. I would love any of our listeners to take just a couple of minutes, and after you listen to this, just give us your thoughts, you know, on anything from, oh, I listened to The Gift and haha, or what, you know, whatever it is, you know, or I listen to Sister Ray and you guys are fucking dumb, man. You just don't get it. You know, like whatever it is, like, I would love to hear other people's inputs on this record. And especially if it's somebody that you listen to it and you're like, fuck, I do get it. And I really, really love it. Yeah. I would love to talk to somebody that was massively influenced by this record and totally loves it.
I would too.
Yeah.
So yeah, send us your thoughts on that. If nothing else for this week, let us know what you think of this one.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's definitely like a head scratcher, like you said. Even though I said I want to leave it on, it's not what I expected. And I was like, oh sweet, our first Velvet Underground, because I love the Velvet Underground, and yeah, it's weird.
One day I'll find the person that's like, dude, if you don't get that record, I don't get you. I can't wait to have this. Yeah, I can't wait to have my conversation with that person whenever I finally discover them.
Maybe it'll end with you being like, you know what? White Light, White Heat is the best album ever made. I finally get it. I'm enlightened.
I would love to. Well,
okay. Should we do the last album? Okay, one more album for this week. And we have number 271, which is Mary J. Blige. The album is What's the 411 from 1992. There was no way R&B was going to keep its distance from hip-hop. They had too much in common, but it required the right singer to build a road between the two. On her first album, Mary J. Blige was marketed as the Queen of Hip-Hop Soul and the Bronx Queen of Hip Hop Soul, and the Bronx-born singer lived up to the regal hype, singing about pain and resolve in equal measures. Even when songwriters stuck her with pedestrian lines, you feel genuine longing and the weight of her experiences in every word.
It's a really telling last sentence, because, you know, we're back to another record where Mary J. Blige is a performer. At least on this record she is, you know, because she didn't record, or she didn't write any of this material. Like, all this material was written for her, and it's just her interpretation of another person's, like, lyrics and music, which I don't hate as long as it's done well. But in the same breath, where I might not hate it, you know, I prefer artists that create their own, right? That perform their own creations.
Yes, me too.
That's just a personal thing. That being said, Mary J. Blige is really, really good, and Rolling Stone nailed it in their description in terms of what this record is, which is really, listen, it's when soul and hip hop got in bed and made a love baby, right?
Which is interesting, because maybe that's something that I've always taken for granted. I've never really thought of R&B and hip hop as being these like strangers to each other. Maybe it's just because I was born in 1991 and this came out in 92, and probably a lot of the stuff that followed was heavily influenced by it. So if this is really like the first time that those two genres were kind of married, then that's super interesting. Like I said, I think I probably just took it for granted. I never really thought of them as that. I thought of them as pretty incestuous genres, you know?
I guess the only thing that I would say to counter that is, if you think about the R&B that we've had thus far on this list, and if it was done, say before 1990, like if it was from the 80s or the 70s or anything like that, there's no way that you would listen to any of that R&B and say, "Oh yeah, I can hear that boom bap." Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And the boom bap that's really like, when you think of boom bap, you really think about kind of early hip hop, or like especially New York City hip hop, right? Like that's a very East Coast, it's a very East Coast rap descriptor,
So
with boom bap.
you think it's like mainly a rhythmic addition to R&B then?
Yes. Yeah, I think that Diddy was the first guy to say, "Fuck, if I took the same beats that I was giving Biggie and just had a super fucking talented singer singing this whole time, that might work." And he was right. It
I'm
fucking
glad you did.
worked.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
For
Because
sure.
that's what this is. Like in my mind, this is Diddy taking rap beats and having a super super talented singer sing over the top of it. And
Yeah,
I
and you
dug
know
it.
what? That's like probably some of the best notes that I've made, or some of the most common notes rather that I made, were just how good the beats were on all of these tracks. Like they had
Mhm.
killer beats, you know.
Yeah,
And yeah,
absolutely.
that's something that I hear. I mean, I'm not gonna like be able to name off a bunch of examples of it, of course, now that I've said it, but like I feel like I hear that all the time. And maybe this is just that this is one of the first examples of that. And I just didn't really ever think about it not being a thing, you know?
I think in a lot of ways it is the first. Like I do think that this was the prototype for basically all of the R&B that we get today. Like what we think about as R&B music today is all because of this.
Well,
Whereas
that's huge then.
yeah, because if you, like I say, find an R&B record from the 80s that doesn't have it. Any R&B record, I think, from the 80s and 70s, you're going to have super high quality studio musicians providing all of the background tracks to really talented singers. And
Yeah.
this is not that. Like this, there's
No.
almost no instrumentation on this record whatsoever. This is all like Beat Factory shit
Yeah.
from Diddy.
Well, yeah, like I said, that's huge then, because like I went into this maybe feeling like I was a bit surprised by the placement, but if and like and not as into it. But if this is really the first example of that, then that is massive for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And banger tracks too. Real Love is spectacular. Right. That
I
was
love
a
Real
song that,
Love.
yeah, that was a song that put her on the map. The Shaka Khan cover, Sweet Thing, she fucking smashes that song, dude.
Okay, I didn't realize that was Shaka Khan. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That was my that was tied for my most starred song. That was a 4-star song for me. I loved that one.
Yeah. Same with me. And same number of stars too. I put 4 stars next to that. I put 4 stars next to Real Love as well. There were also there
3
were
on that.
also there were also songs that disappointed me too, right? Like right before Sweet Things, there's that song Intro Talk. And I got super excited because I was like, oh, fuck yeah, dude. Busta is going to spit bars. And then Mary J. Blige is going to be singing over the top of that. And spoiler alert, that's not what you fucking get. Like
Yeah,
you get
you get
Buster.
like 1 or 2 lines from Busta that where he like kind of is rapping, but the rest he's really just talking, right?
Yeah. It's just Buster Rhymes talking. And there's like two lines where he does kind of rap, but fucking boo. Dude, you shouldn't even list Busta Rhymes as a feature on there, right? Put that shit in the liner notes, but don't try and sell records with with it, because it
Yeah,
was just
especially
such a fucking it's such a disappointment.
with what you come to expect from Busta Rhymes. I mean, he's such a madman with his,
Dude,
and you did not get
exactly.
what you expect out of Busta Rhymes at all. But Yeah, so Sweet Thing I loved. I loved the final track. What's the 411 with the Grand Poobah?
With dude, because that's what I wanted from the Busta track.
Exactly. Yep.
That's what I was expecting. And so whenever I got him talking, I was just like, you suck. And then when we got to the end of the record and I saw another feature from Grand Poobah, I was like, great. So are we just gonna get more fucking talkie here? But luckily we didn't. Like, luckily
that
we
was
got
dope.
yeah, it was super, super fucking good.
Plenty of rapping, including rapping from Mary J. Blige, right?
Yes,
I
dude.
assume she's the
Mary was spitting
some
bars.
serious like I don't know if it was like Jurassic 5 or like Tribe Called Quest vibes for me on that one. Did you get that at all?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. If that would have been Q-Tip on there as opposed to Grand Poobah, I think it would have maybe even been better. But I did not hate that at all. The song right before that, Changes I've Been Going Through, I like that song a lot, dude. I like that song.
That was another 3-star one for me. A great
Yeah.
hook on that one. Loved it. Another great beat on that too.
Absolutely.
Really, really good beat.
Absolutely. Her voice is so fucking good. And I liked the piano line on Changes I've Been Going Through. I like that piano line a lot. But same. I wrote that the hook was killer. If I was gonna be um if I was gonna be unnecessarily critical about this, it's gonna be the same criticism that I have about a lot of this genre of music, and that is that a lot of these songs that are 5.5, 6 minutes long, let's make them 4-minute songs.
Okay, I'm glad you said that because that was literally what I was about to say next. I was going to say if I have one complaint against this, well, I have two kind of complaints, but one of them is just totally diminished now that I found out that this is like the very beginning of the style. Which one of the complaints was that most of these songs sound pretty similar. You know,
Yeah.
it's almost all very, very. You can kind of get lost in it because they're pretty much the same thing. But if this is like the dawn of a new style, that can be totally forgiven. You know.
Yeah.
But the other complaint I was going to say was that these songs are way too long, in my opinion. Like a lot of these, the thing is that people are going to laugh at us because, you know, like we're Fish and Dead fans and we're complaining about a song being too long, but there's not like a whole lot of change going on. You know, they're pretty much just like backing tracks that are like, some of them are 5.5, 6 minutes long. With not a whole lot that actually morphs throughout it or keeps it interesting. There's songs that like I would be totally engaged for the whole thing if they were 3 minutes long, but at 6 minutes you lose me, you know?
Well, and especially when the last 2 minutes of the song are the same beat with the same hook being repeated over and over and over again. You know, and now granted, sometimes it's so that Mary can kind of do some vocal gymnastics. And if the vocal gymnastics are good, then I'm down. But let's be real. There's bright spots in those 2 minutes, but you know, again, let's edit that shit down. You know what I mean? Give me 30 seconds. Give me one extra hook and 30 seconds where the absolute best fucking vocal gymnastics that she does in there are there, and let's fucking close it. You know, let's shut the book on this shit.
Totally.
Yeah. So I don't hate it, but and again, this is a criticism that I've made other times with music that kind of falls within a similar vein as what we have here. But I do think that the influence and what Diddy did specific to her is it changed the game, right?
Yeah.
It changed the game in a really big way for R&B.
For sure. And that's totally to be respected. But yeah, I'm not going to say I hate the timing thing, but I will say it does bother me. I mean, I would like this album a lot more if these songs were shorter. I'll say that, like, for sure. Like I would be a much bigger fan of it. It honestly negatively impacts my opinion of it because I just feel like they're, like you said, they're too long, and a lot of them, the last 2 minutes is exactly the same, like unnecessary. It's like they're just copy pasting almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, and
packaging of it kind of diminishes from the content for me.
Yeah. And outside of that, I can find there's very little that I want to criticize about this record outside of just the overall length. And even the very first track, which is, it's an intro. Okay. That's what it is. It, like, instead of it being a skit, which is what you would get on a rap album, this is an intro where it's a bunch of people like leaving messages for Mary J. Blige on her answering machine, basically giving her credit, right? Because they're like, oh shit, I just heard the new record. It's really good. Oh fuck, I just heard that record. Like, let's do something together.
Yeah.
Put 4 of those together. You know what I mean? Pretend like, oh, she was away for an hour and she got these 4 messages and they're all really good. There's like fucking 20 goddamn messages on there. It ends up being a 4-minute fucking intro. You know, and it's like,
you think any of those were real?
Time out. I'm sure. I'll bet you a lot of them are real. To be honest with you,
Yeah.
I'll bet you a lot of them were because they sounded like. I mean, they sounded really sincere. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yep.
You know. So yeah,
it was funny just hearing the different ways people were approaching it. Like there was like a couple guys that were just like, you know, being really, really nice to her, like, oh, Mary, so good. I want you to come over and swing by and check this out. And there's other guys that were just like almost trying to sound like they were too good. They're like, yo, heard your record, swing on by. We'll let you be a guest. You know,
that's right. That's exactly right. Yeah, the different ways to try to approach and get in the good graces of Mary J. Blige were really funny. But listen, I do enjoy this record.
Yeah.
The placement of it is really tricky.
It is tricky, mainly like because I came into this saying I was going to drop it significantly, but if this is like we're like you guys are learning, I didn't know it is, if this is like the first pairing of hip hop and R&B. I mean, I think it deserves some recognition. I don't think it's necessarily too high.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where I'm at too. You know, I mean, there are super, super high quality, great songs on here. But even if all the songs were, I don't want to say mediocre, but even if there wasn't bangers on here, right? Like there's no Real Love, there's no Sweet Thing. You know, if the best song that you got on here was What's the 411 or Changes I've Been Going Through, I really think that you'd probably have to keep it, you know, at least higher than 300.
Yeah.
Purely because of how all R&B now sounds like this. You know, there's almost no R&B that doesn't employ rap beats.
Yeah. It's almost like it like caused a fork in the road, and R&B that doesn't employ rap beats is more like neo soul now almost.
Yes, that's a great way to put it, right? Because it doesn't even get treated. It almost doesn't even get treated like R&B. It gets treated, like soul or neo soul. And I didn't have good words for that, but I love the way that you put that. You know, because if you have an R&B singer that's utilizing studio musicians with live instrumentation, I don't think they're going to get called R&B nowadays.
No.
You know, and that's neither good nor bad. It is what it is. It's just the way that this particular genre of music has evolved. But let's be fair. It only had, like this. Is this the only reason? No, probably not the only reason. But man, it is a huge, huge influence in creating that.
Yes. Yeah. So I say leave it probably. Leave it where it is.
If you put it at 285, I'm just as happy. You know, as long as it's higher than 300, then I think that it's getting the recognition that it deserves for the influence that it had. You know,
that's
and
fair.
the way that it changed the game. So
we're on board. So should we preview next week and then go back and discuss our favorites of 300 through.
Okay, so that's what I was just going to ask. And yeah, I'm totally fine with doing our preview of next week, because as JB and I were talking about before the show, and we may have even said it at the intro to the show, next week is it is fucking fire, dude. Like such fire in next week's show. So I'm super excited about it.
It's a beefy week, that's for sure.
Beefy.
Very beefy. Starting with the beefy Golden Hour by Casey Musgraves at number 270.
Oh, please start listening, people. If you have not spent time with that record, just do it. And then, man, I'm sad that we're seeing it already. But after Casey Musgraves at 269, we're going to talk about Yeezus by Kanye, which is the first Kanye record out of 6 that are going to appear on this list. We finally get the first entry at 269. Spoiler alert. Fuck you, Rolling Stone. This is way too low for this particular Kanye record, in this person's humble opinion.
And it's hilarious to me that the person that they have commenting in the description is Lou Reed.
Lou Reed. I know.
Yeah.
I know. I love it.
Yep. That's going to be a fun one to talk about for sure. 268, we have Randy Newman, Sail Away.
Yeah, a weird entry, but that'll be fun to talk about. After that, at 267, we're going to be talking about the Minutemen, kind of a double record. I don't even know. Like we'll call it a kind of double record. You'll get it if you listen to it. The title,
like 43 songs.
Yeah, the title, Double Nickels on the Dime. I actually love the title of that record.
It is a great title. Maybe we'll have Lee Stamper, friend of the show, call in for that if he's up for it, because he really likes that one.
Well,
we could potentially have him do that.
Yeah, and so that you know, JB, I've already, I already actually put that request out to him. I already made the request to him to either like record a voice message for us on the website, or if nothing else, just send us an email and give us his 2 cents, because he really, really loves that record. So
yeah, we'll reach out. We'll reach out to him if we can, because we can just call him in. We can have him call in live. We have that capability.
We have those capabilities. Yeah,
we have the technology. Okay, so and then finally 266, we have our second Beatles record, which is Help.
Yes. Yeah. And so we're getting heat, people. Like we are getting warmer and warmer as we move closer to the top of the list. So yeah, if you're playing along at home, get excited, because there is some really, really good stuff to get excited about if you're playing along at home.
For sure.
Now we get to circle back around, because we owe listeners our individual favorite records, from 300 to 275. So
yes, we do already know yours though, so we know yours is the Big Star, so we can skip that.
Jesus,
I'm sorry, I had to do it. Yeah, 300 to 275. We forgot to do this, so we're gonna go back through, and Mike and I will both say our favorite record from that selection. So you want to do a little review in here, Mike? You need a minute?
I mean, I think I know what mine is. I'm just doing a little bit of flipping back here, just so that I can make sure that I'm not going to find something that would change my opinion on this.
I've got one that I know is going to be my top, but I also have 3 honorable mentions.
You have 3 honorable mentions? Okay.
Yeah,
I know what my top is for sure, and I have I probably only have 1 honorable mention, and I know what my 1 honorable mention is. So
okay,
you want to start, or do you want me to start? We're both gonna have the same number 1. I can almost promise.
Okay. Well, my number 1 is definitely Houses of the Holy.
Yes. Yep. Okay, yeah. You too. And that was super easy. I mean, we said it whenever we talked about it on the show. That's, man, for the longest time, that was my favorite Zeppelin record. I listened to that record fucking nonstop for a long time when I was like a senior in high school and just getting out of high school. And I've never lost any love for the record. I just hadn't listened to it in so long that going back to it was and it was so spectacular,
It's
so
amazing.
spectacular.
It's another one of these criminally low on the list, I have to say.
Yeah, it's
I'm
insane
pretty
to
sure it's
me.
headed thin. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
to me, that's like a top 100 for sure.
I mean, at least you at least got to be north or around 150 for me on Houses
Yeah.
of the Holy, because it really is that good. But now I'm curious as to your honorable mention. Since you went first with your number one, I'll give you my one honorable mention, and
Okay.
that you got to go all the way back to 295, because Random Access Memories from Daft Punk is it's a really it's a special record, and if it would have come in at 160 or 185, I would have looked at that and I would have been like, yeah, seems
Hell yeah.
appropriate to me, so I really love that Daft Punk.
Well, now I only have 2 honorable mentions because that was one of my 3. Okay. So we're in agreement there for sure. The other 2 ones that I just want to point out, BB King, Live at the Regal. I mean, especially as a guitar player, this record is gospel. This is like one of the best guitar albums ever made, and not even just for lead guitar purposes. As we kind of talked about on the podcast, talked about that. We talked about how good of a rhythm guitar player he is throughout that. Just amazing performance that is. And then the other one is, I can't not mention. Sorry, I'm scrolling down. I just totally mind blanked. The Nirvana one, MTV Unplugged.
I like that as an honorable mention too. And I hate how much I shouldn't say that I hate this, but Rolling Stone is giving so much kind of credit or credence, if you will, to Kurt Cobain and like what Kurt Cobain thought, and Nirvana is referenced ad nauseum for a band that, man, they weren't really around for that long. They don't have like this insanely deep catalog of super complex music or anything like that. They were insanely influential, right? And they did kind of change music in a lot of ways, but
Yeah, they did.
but that performance, and I said this on the podcast, I absolutely believe that might be the greatest live recording in terms of like the production quality that they were able to capture, maybe ever.
Yeah,
I mean, it's and it really is. And just the fact that they were able to capture that performance and how insanely good that performance was. I appreciate the fact that you threw it out there as an honorable mention. So so another one bites the dust. We'll be back next week, sometime in the middle of the week, and like we were talking about at the top of the show, at some point in time, we'll probably settle on one of these weekdays. That way, if you have been kind enough to ingrain us in some type of a routine as part of your life, we apologize for upsetting.
Difficult as we've made it.
Yeah, as difficult as we have made it, especially over the past 3 weeks or so. Give us a little bit of time and we'll settle into a new post-COVID routine. And hopefully, if we're lucky and if we can make things happen, we're trying to maybe work on some type of event. And we'll leave it at that. It'll be cool if we make it happen. And if you never hear mention of this again, just assume that we fucking failed. And
we failed miserably, but I think you will hear mention of it again.
I think we will too. And it'll be cool if we can pull it off. So between now and then, happy listening, and we'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time, guys. Thanks for tuning in as always. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
This list sucks. This list sucks. This list sucks. This list sucks. It sucks.
Bye-bye. She'd like that.